And guys, this is Christian Mosier from MyMediaHelper.com, and we got some more horror movies, this time from FreeVee. And interesting enough, I'm actually filming this in June, full disclosure, and actually watching the movies in June, full disclosure. So the Quebec and Canadian fires are going on, and that's about 200, 300 miles away, and the winds are blowing all that smoke and crap our way. It smells like a forest fire out there, and it looks ominous. It looks very, very Halloween. That's why I'm bringing this up. So it's very fitting that I'm watching Halloween movies in June. It's like 60 some degrees outside. It feels like an October New York day. So very fitting that I'm going through movies, and the air quality is crap outside. So they say you really shouldn't go outside. I'm unemployed right now, so I'm looking for employment. So what else is there to do but sit here and go through movies and review movies with you? And these will be released, of course, Halloween week. And I hope you enjoy. Some are okay, some are not so okay. But I'll give you my reviews. These are FreeVees. As I said, these are free films. You can go on this site called FreeVee. That's an Amazon site, and Amazon owned, if you're not aware, and watch these movies and tons of movies for free. So let's get to the reviews, shall we? All right, gals and guys. As always, here's the free services and free website you can go to stream free horror, spooky, scary Halloween movies. And here are the 5 movies we will be covering through FreeVee in this video as we review these films. You'll find the links to the films down below in the description, and certainly add your films you think are good. And certainly comment below what you think about the films we cover, or maybe even add the ones that you've watched that I'm not aware of that you think are worth watching this spooky season. And this is just the FreeVee logo, as that's the service we're going to be looking at this time out. So let us get started. Freaky is a 2020 American comedy slasher film directed by Christopher Landon, from a screenplay by Michael Kennedy and Landon, starring Vince Vaughn, Catherine Newton, Katie Finneran, Celeste O'Connor, and Alan Ruck. A twist on Freaky Friday, the film centers on a teenage girl who unintentionally switches bodies with a middle-aged male serial killer. Jason Blum serves as producer under his Blumhouse Productions banner. Freaky premiered at Beyond Fest on October 8th, 2020, and was theatrically released in the United States on November 13th of 2020 and internationally on July 2nd, 2021 by Universal Pictures. The film received positive reviews from critics who praised Vaughn and Newton's performance, as well as the blend of horror and comedy. I cheated on this one. I watched this on January 4th. It was free to stream at the time, so it'll be interesting to see if it still is by the time I post this. This is a pretty funny movie. All the setup of the film pays off to some really good comedy moments. I'm glad they took the time to get there without throwing cheap laughs all over the place. The laughs were earned, and I appreciate that about this film. It's a simple movie. It does a good job setting itself up, just making a generic film that much more enjoyable. I also accept the ending. If it was any other movie, I would probably think it was ultra stupid. In this case, as the movie played more parody than straight, I accept how the killer likes his steak. Get it? His steak. I slay me. Slay me. I did it again. It's a Halloween horror reference. All right, let's continue. The Purge is a 2013 American dystopian action horror film written and directed by James DeMonco. The film stars Ethan Hawke, Lena Headey, Adelaide Kane, and Max Burkholder as members of a wealthy family who find themselves endangered by a gang of murderers during the annual Purge, a night during which all crime, including murder, is temporarily legal. The Purge premiered at the Stanley Film Festival on May 7th of 2013, and Universal Pictures theatrically released it in the United States on June 7th of 2013. The film grossed $89 million against a $3 million budget. Not too shabby. It is the first installment in the Purge franchise. A sequel subtitled Anarchy was released worldwide on July 18th of 2014. A third film, Election Year, was released on July 1st, 2016, and a prequel, The First Purge, was released on July 4th of 2018, and even a television series set between the second and third films aired for 2 seasons from September 4th of 2018 to December 17th of 2019. A fifth film, The Forever Purge, was released on July 2nd of 2021. I've never seen any of those but the first one. This is the second time I've watched this movie. I'd seen it a few years ago when it first came out, and I remember I liked it. It holds up really well, but on second viewing, I wouldn't really classify it as a horror movie. To me, it feels more like Die Hard in your own house if John McClane's family was involved. To me, The Purge is more of an action movie than a scary movie. I haven't seen any of the sequels or the television show, and I'll probably keep it that way. It's a concept for one movie, although I'm curious how they'd make a whole series out of it. Highly recommend it, not only for the Halloween season, but anytime throughout the year, really. Route 666 is a 2000 action horror film directed by William Wesley and starring Lou Diamond Phillips, Lori Petty, Stephen Williams, L.Q. Jones, Dale Midkiff, Alex MacArthur, and Mercedes Colin. In the film, government agents are besieged by the ghosts of a massacred chain gang while driving down a desert highway. So I'm assuming the idea for this movie came from the real Route 666. The highway's name was changed in 1993 to U.S. Route 491 because of many incidents of stolen road signs linked to superstitions based on Christian associations of the number 666, with biblical prophecies of the number of the beast, with the beast being the devil, whatever. Route 666 was totally paved and spans through 4 states, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. It's 200 miles long and runs from the city of Monticello, Utah, to the city of Gallup, New Mexico, through Navajo Nation and Shiprock and across the Colorado border. The road features a pretty spooky reputation, and some of the strange activity witnessed are a haunted truck, the girl in the white dress, weird lights, hellhounds, disappearing drivers, the skinwalkers, or Satan's sedan. Again, whatever. For the movie, I never heard of it until scrolling through FreeVee. I always liked Lou Diamond Phillips. I don't think I've ever seen him in a terrible movie, so that alone made me watch. Lori Petty is give or take. I was never a big fan, but she's tolerable here. Stephen Williams I've known for years, starting with 21 Jump Street and then The X-Files, and he pops up in a variety of different things. The film starts out pretty standard with Lou Diamond Phillips and Lori Petty as federal marshals capturing Stephen Williams' character. It reminded me a lot of Midnight Run with Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro, just for a couple seconds though. The marshals capture the person they're supposed to be bringing in while being pursued by a third party. It's not until about 30 minutes in when the horror begins. Well, it's not really a horror. I'm not sure horror is a good word. When the zombies appear, the film is strangely shot with slow motion and bizarre angles. I have no idea why this was a choice. They were bad choices nonetheless, as it really made the movie look super cheap. It makes me think they were trying to cover up how bad the makeup effects were and how bad the action was by trying to hide it with slow motion and just blurry camera, shaky camera, and bizarre Dutch angle close-ups. This is not a particularly good or scary movie. It's not even particularly watchable. I don't recommend it very highly. It's not really entertaining. I barely made it through the entire film. I don't know. I was tempted to turn it off a couple times, but I drove through. I drove through Route 66. Disposable, I think, is the word. Remember when I said I've never really seen Lou Diamond Phillips in a terrible movie? I have now seen Lou Diamond Phillips in a terrible movie. Every choice for this movie was the wrong one. I already mentioned a couple. Let's add the music. It did nothing to help the mood of this film. Some terrible rock and roll ballads I think some 5-year-old put together. It was just garbage. It was absolute garbage. The beginning had, a hint of a possible good movie, and it didn't last very long. So I don't recommend it. It's not scary, and I don't recommend it this Halloween season. A movie I do recommend is Horns. Horns is a 2013 dark fantasy mystery comedy horror film directed by Alexandre Aja from a screenplay written by Keith Bunnan, based on the 2010 novel of the same name by Joe Hill. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as a young man falsely accused of murdering his girlfriend, who uses his newly discovered paranormal abilities to uncover the real killer. Explaining his initial interest in the project, Alexandre Aja said after reading Joe Hill's cult book, "I couldn't resist the temptation invitation to dive into the devilish underworld and reinvent the universal myth. Principal photography started in late September of 2012 in British Columbia. The filming took place in Vancouver, Mission, Surrey, Squamish, completing shooting in December of 2012. I wouldn't exactly call this a horror movie or even put it in the horror section as FreeVee did. This is more like a supernatural, dark comedy drama than anything else. I suppose a guy with horns on his head can be very Halloweenish. I was never a big Harry Potter fan. Daniel Radcliffe was a fine young actor in those movies. I just didn't care for those movies. I didn't have anything against him. It's good to see him break away from the Harry Potter role and do something I can more identify with. Can I go as far as saying this is a movie of social commentary and what people say compared to what they think, as those can sometimes be polar opposites or just a gray or a fine line mesh. People can be pretty damn selfish, yet give the demeanor of care and worry to others. Perhaps there is that fine line of truth with what we both say and think. This movie isn't really that deep, but it does make you think about it, and that's what movies are supposed to do, so perhaps it has several layers, like onions and ogres. I wouldn't plan on being scared when watching Horns. It's not a scary movie. Horns premiered at the 2013 Toronto International Film Festival and was theatrically released in the United States on October 31st of 2014. That's really the only relationship it has with Halloween. I do recommend the film any time of the year, so if you want your Halloween movies more on the tame side, perhaps this is the one to watch this time of year. Wacko is a 1982 American comedy horror film produced and directed by Graydon Clark, starring Joe, Don Baker, and George Kennedy. The film was released theatrically in the United States by Jensen Farley Pictures in January of 1983. What a bizarre and random movie. Wacko is a parody film of sorts, coming out a couple of years after Airplane. This is not a good movie. I had no idea this film existed until scrolling through the FreeVee horror offerings. Jeremy Wheeler, of AllMovie, gave the film 1 out of 5 stars and wrote Wacko virtually vanished from the face of the earth, which, as it turns out, isn't necessarily a bad thing. For its hundreds of gags and zingers, there are actually very few laughs and a seemingly endless 84-minute running time. Chris Koffel of Bloody Disgusting praised the film's frenetic energy, was there any? And killer ensemble cast, writing Wacko is not a movie everyone is going to love or even like. Not all the jokes land, and depending on who you ask, none of them do, but I can't help but love this movie. Wacko tries to be a comedy. It tries really hard. I'm old enough to get the in-jokes that will go over the heads of anyone not born in the 70s and 80s. The film seems to loosely parody the film Halloween, Prom Night, and Carrie, among others. There's a little elephant man thrown in there. And wait a minute, was that Andrew Dice Clay? Hey, the Clay! An extremely young Andrew Dice Clay showing up doing a cheap man's John Travolta impression. I guess he's been doing that his whole career. Julia Duffy stars. I best know her from Newhart. There are a lot of character actors you'd see pop up in 70s and 80s television guest spots, so that was kind of cool to see. The movie was interesting to watch. I don't think anyone under the age of 50 would get anything out of it. If you're an old fart like me, you may fall into a small nostalgic kick. Beyond that, this film is pretty terrible. It does take place during Halloween, and these are Halloween movie reviews, so there you go. Grab some friends and some beers and watch this. It may be fun to just rip it apart. Beyond that, little to no substance here. And speaking of absolutely no substance, The Thaw is a 2009 American science fiction horror thriller film directed by Mark A. Lewis and starring Val Kilmer, Martha McIsaac, and Aaron Ashmore. I started watching this and it sucked. I turned it off. Don't bother. It seems Val Kilmer had this evil window where he made some terrible movies. This was one of them. At least the movie Wacko fascinated me the entire film. The Thaw made Wacko seem competent by comparison. Just warning you. And for FreeVee, just hit the link I had down in the description. And once you get there, what I do is I go to category and I go to horror. And then these are Prime videos, but here's FreeVee movies. So I would do Seymour Buns. Remember that? I don't know. Maybe I'm aging myself there. And then you just scroll down. These are all the horror movies you can watch at no cost. They're free, and they have commercial interruptions, but they're not too annoying, really. There's also free TV, so there's the Twilight Zone on here, and there are the X-Files, Addams Family, a lot of Halloween coolness. So you can also watch series and just Seymour Buns. All right, gals and guys, that's it this time for FreeVee for Halloween movie reviews. Yay! What's tomorrow? I think tomorrow's Peacock. I don't know. I forget. I said Peacock. I think it's Voodoo. Tomorrow's Voodoo. Anyways, I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, I almost forgot. Please subscribe. Please subscribe, like, share, hit the bell for updates. That's it. Now I'll see you tomorrow.